Welcome back to the fastest 20 minutes in sports presented by Betting by the Numbers. I'm Connor Stewart, and we're going to get through a quick rundown of sports all over the world, preview the weekend ahead, and get into our best bets. We're going to first knock out Formula One, head on over to the Premier League and Major League Soccer. Then we're going to get on over to the courses for PGA Tour and Live previews. Finally, we're going to have an AL preview in the MLB and three best bets for this Thursday. So Thursday episodes, likely a preview episode going forward, especially with this kind of pattern of spring sports being very weekend dominated, with Saturdays and Sundays being the days that a lot of them wrap up. So Thursdays will be a lot of here's what's coming up, and Tuesdays will be a lot of here's what happened. And if we need the Saturday episodes, especially when we get into March and college basketball picking up, then we will be doing that. So let's, without further ado, head on over to the track and get our Formula One preview in for this weekend. We're not only going to go over the season as a whole, but we're going to also dig into this weekend's Bahrain Grand Prix, which is running actually a day earlier than most people would expect. Most time, the Grand Prix take place on Sunday, and this week and next week, they will be taking place on Saturday because of the start of Ramadan and the break needed between races of 7 days. So they just shifted both the races forward, and we have Saturday races starting at 10 a.m. Eastern on Saturday. So we actually had practices beginning today on Thursday, February 29th, with two practices going in. But let's first look at the season as a whole. It's Red Bulls to lose again. They're coming in looking for Verstappen's fourth straight championship and Red Bull's third straight constructors. And I don't really see it going any other way than Max pulling away with it, at least to this point. He's minus 600 at the books to win his individual championship, and Red Bull is minus 650 to win the Constructors' Championship, which means the points allocated to drivers at the end of every weekend are totaled up, and they are showing both who the best driver over the whole season was and who the best team was using both of their drivers' points combined. And Red Bulls are just favorites until their car starts to look like it's caught up with the rest of the crew. Last year, Red Bull was able to get a major lead. They won the season in record-breaking time, and it means that they more likely than not were already turning to 2024 last season. They've had some difficulties in the offseason, and there's a lot of shakeup happening next year with drivers moving around, but this feels like it might turn into one of those lost seasons in Formula One where Max kind of just pulls away. Viewership might be down a bit, but let's hope for something different. Let's hope for maybe Mercedes, maybe McLaren, maybe Ferrari to really step up and challenge for the title. But until we see otherwise, the last couple of years are pretty definite proof that we have a long-standing champion until he is unseated. So let's look quickly at the Bahrain International Circuit that we have coming up this weekend. There's 3 DRS zones, which allows for drivers to pass a lot easier if they are within a second of the driver ahead of them. There's also some long straights and some turns, including turn 11, which is one of the better known on the Formula One circuit, just because it's a medium speed left-hander in a spot where people can really try to launch their overtakes, and they get to go into a really fast part of the track. So there's a possibility of a great race. There's a track that has lended itself to some of those, especially earlier in the season. If there's any wrecks, if there's any drama, then who knows what can happen. That's the great part about Formula One, is that everything can, paint out according to the chalk, and it comes out exactly how it is. Or there's a race that knocks out one of the Red Bulls, that knocks out one of the Mercedes, and puts the whole race on its head. So we can hope for something like that. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we will see. So quickly looking at the practice results from this Thursday, bit of an upset with Daniel Ricciardo being the first overall time in the first practice, with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri and the McLarens right behind him. And in practice 2, we actually had a 1-2 by the Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell going 1-2 with Fernando Alonso and the Aston Martin following that up. So we'll see. Good results for the other teams right now in full practice, but who knows if Red Bull are just pulling back on a setting, just trying to learn more about their cars earlier in the season and aren't too worried about top speed in their practices. So we'll see when qualifying comes about. We'll see what happens this weekend. So there will be a lot to recap on Tuesday, I'm sure. But quickly, one other story in the Formula One world that I think needs to be quickly touched on is that Christian Horner, the team principal for Red Bull, has been cleared after an external investigation into allegations made by a female employee, said the parent company of the Red Bull Racing. They said that they took the allegations extremely seriously, and there was actually a hearing which involved Christian Horner being questioned by King's Counsel in London while the investigation was ongoing. Basically, they've come out and said that after a thorough review, the complaint has been dismissed. There is a right to appeal on the complaint. So it does not feel like this is anywhere near over. We actually had today on Thursdays some of the Formula One teams allegedly saying we want to learn more about this investigation to see if due diligence actually was done. Not sure that's exactly their place, but this is Formula One where there's just so much money at stake that teams honestly will do whatever it takes to try to win. So it's not a great place to try to be gaining an advantage, but it just does not feel like this is the end of the story. So we will see. We'd like for this to be, the end, and hopefully the parties can move on, but we'll see. So we'll keep you updated on that. Let's head on over to soccer now. First, we're going to look at England. We had an interesting article come from The Athletic. Jacob Whitehead wrote about the rarity of a title race coming down between three teams and really the rarity of it in the Premier League. Liverpool, Manchester and City, and Arsenal are within 2 points of each other with only a third of the season left. We talked about it the last couple weeks, but, of these three teams in league play, only one of them has lost in the year of 2024, and that was when Arsenal beat Liverpool. So really the only teams that can beat them right now are each other. And it looks like we have a really good potential at a historic season that brings three teams right down to the end. The last time that we really had this was 10 years ago in 2013, 2014. Chelsea had a strong lead. Manchester City and Liverpool make up their positions. Then Steven Gerrard slips and allows City to win the league. And before that, 2007, 2008, we had Manchester United beat out Chelsea and Arsenal in a three-man race. But of the 31 total Premier League seasons, if you count a quote-unquote title race as the teams finishing within 5 points of each other at the end of the season, there's only been three-way battles. So this is not something that I think we'll be seeing a lot of. The disparity between the good and the bad in the Premier League is becoming more and more evident. But who knows? Maybe there's some shakeup. Maybe there's new financial fair play rules that get put into place that maybe institute a rough salary cap that at least allows for some disparity to exist, or rather for some parity to exist in the league. But for right now, it's kind of the Kings League. Obviously, Aston Villa is kind of putting a question mark on that, and there's been the Leicester Cities of the world who have turned the league on its head. But right now, it looks like it's going to come down to these three teams, and maybe even with Liverpool and having so many injuries in the last couple months, it could come down to a two-man lead between City and Arsenal. So let's look into the schedule for this weekend. Of note between those three teams, and that's probably who we'll be focusing on as the season comes to an end, other than maybe the relegation battle. We have Liverpool going on the road against Nottingham Forest. We have City at home in the Manchester Derby, and Arsenal going on the road to Sheffield. I think there's a chance that all three teams could drop points. Obviously, anything in a derby is possible, but Man City has definitely gotten the better hand of Manchester the last decade. So they're giving Man United a plus 1,000 odds to win the game, pretty long, as well as Sheffield plus 1,700 to get a win against Arsenal. City and Arsenal are the two healthier teams. It makes sense. Meanwhile, Liverpool going on the road to Nottingham Forest, plus 550 for Forest, which is not as long of odds as you would probably expect against a team in the title race. But hey, you get them on the road. You get Liverpool coming off to playing a couple games, playing in the Carabao Cup. Maybe you catch them off point, and you get up 1-0, 2-0, and all of a sudden Liverpool's fighting for their life. So I think one of these teams drops points this weekend. Maybe just a tie. Maybe they drop 2 points. But a lot of big games that'll be taking place that could shape up the rest of the season. So super interesting stuff happening in the EPL. Obviously, Erling Haaland midweek in the FA Cup gets 5 goals. He looks like he might be back into form. And if that happens with Manchester City getting Kevin De Bruyne back, Not sure who can beat him in the world, more or less, in England. But we'll see. There's a long season, still a third of the season left. So nobody has the trophy in their hands yet. They're going to have to win big games and against each other to hold on to that. So let's turn now to the MLS. First, we're going to look at the MLS rest. Then we will turn to the weekend ahead. We will start another weekend this week with replacement referees, as the Professional Soccer Referees Association and the Professional Referee Organization were not able to reach an agreement in the ongoing labor dispute. So it looks like we will have replacement referees from mostly the college and youth levels, and basically a large crop of officials who have division or experience refereeing lower division games, but have not been at the professional level yet. So the two parties are accusing each other of misconduct. It's gotten pretty intense between them. So I don't see this resolving anytime soon. Who knows? There's been pretty violent union disagreements that have been resolved in enough time before, but this one's pretty pronounced, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of give from each side. So we will see, but not a lot of stories coming out of the refereeing from week one. There were a lot of lower scoring games, so maybe not as much forcing the hand of the referees. And I'm sure that these replacements are being told, try to stay out of these games as much as possible. Try not to become a story. So hopefully that continues, because I think soccer is better when there's less referee interference and there's more of just letting the game develop, because unlike football, there really is a rhythm to soccer. There's a rhythm to the game, and the game just doesn't look as good. The players don't play as well when it's very choppy and it's very, broken up. So let's get into a couple of the big games this weekend. First, we have one of our derbies. We have Inter Miami taking on Orlando City. This is going to pit together Messi and one of the previous younger teams or newer teams in the MLS, Orlando City. Obviously, Messi, Suarez, Sergio Busquets, and Jordi Alba are the big names for Miami. But Luis Muriel is going to be making his league debut for Orlando. He's a former Atalanta striker, so not a small name. And we hopefully will have a good game. The MLS is weird, and there's a lot of weird results a lot of the time. So who honestly knows? We got a draw out of Messi midweek when a lot of people thought he might be able to trounce through the league. So there's more to this league now than just having a great player. That's not enough to just win you a title anymore. So you got to be able to put it together. So we'll see if Messi can keep doing that. But so far, things are looking pretty good. We're going to head to another big story from last year. St. Louis, their team is going to be taking on NYCFC in a matchup of teams who looked good at times last year. In fact, St. Louis finished the season in the first seed in the West, but unfortunately lost in the first round. And have only picked up a 1-1 draw last week. Klaus, their big scorer, and Lowen, their midfielder, are both on lengthy goalless draws, goalless streaks going back to 2023. And NYCFC is kind of putting together a new team with 5 or 6 new big signings this year. So it should be an interesting game. We'll see if St. Louis can kind of right the ship, or if NYCFC can put some of their new signings to work. So be a good one to keep eyes on there. And then finally, we have the California Classico, one of our older derbies, San Jose against LA Galaxy. Obviously, when LAFC came in the league, the El Tráfico between LAFC and LA Galaxy got a lot of highlights. But this used to be a huge showdown in the West Coast, and I expect another big game out of them this weekend. So that one will be later on Saturday. Should be a good one to watch. So if you're just watching basketball, sitting around on Saturday and looking for something to kill the time, the MLS should have plenty on throughout the weekend, and should be some good games. So let's head now to the golf course. We have 2 big tournaments this weekend. First, we have the Cognizant Classic, which actually started this morning on Thursday in Florida. It's the beginning of the Florida swing that gets the guys ready for the Masters in actually just a couple weeks. The course has kind of had a facelift. This is PGA National Resorts in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. The rough has been shortened, fairways expanded, and the long par 4 is actually now a shortest par 5 on the 10th. So scoring's expected to improve. They've taken advantage of it so far this morning. On Thursday, there were some 6 under, 7 under, 8 under. So should be interesting, but everything goes through the bear trap at PGA National, which is the 15th through the 17th holes. There's water everywhere. You have to be accurate. And as long as you can keep the ball in front of you and be able to putt on the Bermuda, then you should be able to win. So early leaderboard shows Cam Young having a chance to continue his run of good form and maybe get a win on the PGA Tour. But lots of big guys. Rory's should be out there putting together a good performance and should be a fun tournament. It's one of those courses that you can just turn on and just enjoy watching. It's a beautiful course and should have a good leaderboard. So something to watch there, the PGA. And we can turn over to LIV now. We are going to Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. It's the third time that LIV has gone there. This is the earliest they've gone there. Usually it's taken place in mid-October, but this is a tournament that Brooks Koepka is the two-time defending champion. The golf course is Royals Green Golf and Country Club, and it's something that really Brooks has dominated both performances. Last year, Taylor Gooch came for a second-place finish, but lost to Koepka in a playoff, and I see Koepka hopefully keeping that run in good form. Big names, John Rahm, Taylor Gooch, Dustin Johnson, Paul Casey. Gooch really in the news for his comments about Rory McIlroy and him not playing in the Masters. So that means there's an asterisk next to it, which is a pretty wild thing to say for someone who's not had a lot of success on the tour. Otherwise, DJ, probably a good pick here too, but it's kind of like Formula One until proven otherwise. This is Brooks Koepka's tournament, so we'll stay there. Turning to the MLB now, we have Zips projections coming out from Fangraphs that are a pretty good estimate of how teams, just kind of based on their rosters and last year's projections, look like they're going to do this year. In the American League East, we have the Orioles looking to build on another good season last year. We'll see if the Yankees can right their strips. Their lineup's good enough that they should be able to handle, especially with Juan Soto coming in if he stays healthy. But, I feel like this is the Orioles, the Blue Jays, the Rays. Everyone's going to be into it. Probably the Red Sox are the odd man out of that. But I wouldn't be surprised if any one of these five teams wins it. But the Orioles, at least on paper and with their pitching lineups or their bullpen and their starters, have a really good chance of doing that. So in the AL Central, this is usually not the best division in baseball. The Guardians, the Twins, Tigers, Royals, all projected to somewhat finish within 500 or at least 10 games of it, with the White Sox being a little bit outside of it. I think you can, again, put any of these teams up there. The Royals will get some credit because they've signed Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha, Will Smith, Hunter Renfroe, Adam Frazier, really put some veterans around their strong core of younger players. So there's a chance that they could make a run for the playoffs, but that might just be my homerism talking and wanting them to. So let's not fall anywhere there. But I wouldn't love putting money on anybody in the Central just because it feels like it's just going to be who gets hot in the last couple months of the season and can put together some wins in the Central that probably takes that title. And I doubt one of them is getting the wild card. So in the AL West, Astros, Rangers, Mariners, again, all close to each other, all around 10 games over 500. I mean, it's hard to go against the Astros because of their run of form, but, you got Scherzer, DeGrom, and the Rangers, and obviously you have a lot of offensive talent in Seattle. So I think that'll be one of the more fun adventures to watch. The Angels look pretty dead, especially after Ohtani leaves, and the A's are going to probably be the worst team in the MLB. They're leaving soon, and I don't think they have much enthusiasm to be at the ballpark. So I don't see them getting above 65 wins probably this season, and I'd be shocked if they're not the worst team in the MLB. So just kind of quickly looking at these, I think your Central is going to be kind of a rock fight until the last couple months of the season, and I think your AL East is going to be really a good throwdown with some of the better teams in the AL. I think your AL champion probably comes out of the East, but who knows? There's been a lot of good teams out of the East that haven't been able to get it done. So, that's our quick little MLB preview, and let's get into the best bets to wrap out today's episode. We went 1-1 on Tuesday's picks. Looked great with our Kentucky pick, getting the win as the underdog, and then Kansas comes out, has a strong first half lead, and loses outright to BYU. It was one of their first loss at home in some insane amount of games. It was one of those stats that make you not want to bet again. But I take that pick again. They were the right team. They just fell apart in the second half. So 3 picks on the college slate. this Thursday to get us right. First, we're going to have South Dakota State -1.5 on the road versus North Dakota. This line opened up with North Dakota as 1.5-point favorites, and now South Dakota State are 1.5-point favorites. The money's telling us all we need to know. On the stats side, South Dakota State does all the things that I like them to do: free throws, three-pointers, better than North Dakota. And also North Dakota is only 4-5 against the spread at home. Rutgers -6.5 versus Michigan. Michigan's dead. Rutgers probably won't make the tourney, but they want to win at home. They're 8-7 at home against the spread, while the Wolverines are 2-8 against the spread on the road and 2-8 in the last 10. This is not a good spot for Michigan, and I don't think they care much. So I see this line getting bigger, probably somewhere like 8 by tip-off, and I think Rutgers covers either way. Last game, we have San Francisco +3.5 against Gonzaga, number 23. That meets my perfect little pattern of having a home dog against a ranked team somewhere between 3 and 7. San Francisco's 8-6 against the spread at home, while Gonzaga is only 500 against the spread on the road this season. San Francisco has good metrics. This should be an offensive performance, but you take the home team here. That line seems a little bit lower than I thought it would be, so I'm going to ride it. So 3 picks today: South Dakota State -1.5, Rutgers -6.5, and San Francisco +3.5 against Gonzaga. That is going to wrap up the fastest 20 minutes in sports. I'm exhausted. I've talked way too fast. If you have questions, if you have topics you want to discuss, if you have sports that you think need more coverage, if you think we aren't talking enough about the UFC, about WWE, about whatever, NASCAR, let me know. Love to talk about more, what people want to listen to, and love to keep giving out these picks. So thanks for following along. Make sure to follow, like the channel, subscribe, and tell your friends about it. We're going to keep this moving, and I'll see you next Tuesday.